First, we beat Ratchet and Clank 1 without buying any packs. Then, we beat Ratchet and Clank 2 without ever rescuing Clank. This time, in the third game, we are forced to have Clank on our backs with all packs available right from the start. So we'll just have to be careful not to use those packs, as we once again try to find out, can you beat Ratchet and Clank 3 without packs? Yes you can. It's not even that hard. There's so little platforming in this game compared to the first two. We even used a debug code built into the PS3 HD version of the game to manually remove the helipack and the thruster pack from our gadgets menu, and it was still too easy. For some reason, Ratchet's double jump height has received a buff in the third game, just in case it wasn't already easy enough. We can even get all the titanium bolts and in-game trophy collectibles, so we had to take this a step further. What about, can you beat Ratchet and Clank 3 without jumping? Let's find out. Let's look at the rules, but first, I need to tell you that this video is brought to you in partnership with NordVPN. It's important to stay safe online nowadays, and hackers are as common as ever. Wi-Fi networks, especially free public Wi-Fi networks, can be compromised by criminals after your data. The solution is NordVPN software. It allows you to encrypt your online traffic and change your device's IP address, which secures your privacy and makes you harder to track online. It's so easy to use, it's just one click to turn on, or you can even set it to turn on automatically. NordVPN doesn't mess around either. It's confirmed by speed tests that this is the fastest VPN there is. What's more, the same account can be used across 6 devices, and they range from Android, iOS, macOS, and Linux. Even your Android TV supports NordVPN. They go the extra mile too with something called threat protection, which prevents malware and even blocks ads. The cherry on top is that you can use NordVPN to change your virtual location on your device. For example, the new Matilda musical movie is not available on the UK Netflix. But by using NordVPN, we can open a map with a single click and we can change our location to America. And now the Matilda musical movie is right there, ready to watch. You can get an exclusive NordVPN deal at nordvpn.com/NG+. That's nordvpn.com/NG+. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks for checking out NordVPN, and thank you NordVPN for partnering with us on this video. Back to the rules. Rule number 1, we cannot jump at all, either with Ratchet or Clank. A jump must be initiated with the X button to count as a jump. Rule number 2, we must play every single planet in the game. We must not completely skip any of them. Skips within the planets are fine, we just won't be skipping over them entirely. Rule number 3, we will be playing on New Game Plus, following on from our packless run. And finally, rule number 4, once we defeat Nefarious at the end of the game, we win. So, just so we're clear on what counts as a jump, there will be no regular jumps, high jumps, long jumps, side flips, or back flips. This also means no wall jumping, but since you can't do a normal jump anyway, you likely won't ever be able to wall jump. This should be interesting. In fact, we live streamed this whole challenge run with the Ratchet and Clank GOAT himself, Zem.
Angle Clank a little bit more, yeah, like a little bit more to the left like you were before.
Like this?
Yeah.
Am I moving forward at the same time?
Yes, yeah, definitely move forward.
So I knew we were in good hands. If ever there's an insane strat that literally took years to learn and perfect, I will be showing footage of Zem performing those very strats. We start the game on planet Thezeldrin, and right away we need to follow our robot friends up these ledges. Since we have a full inventory of all the game's weapons, we have a couple of options here, but we can use this opportunity to show an example of a proxy. The game remembers the last 3 things we equipped in the top left corner of the screen, and tapping triangle toggles between them. For this proxy, we need the shock cannon and the turret glove back to back in this list. We also need to use our charge boots for this. Now, with our shock cannon in hand, we face towards this plant at about this distance. We charge into the plant with a double R1. As soon as we are about to hit the plant, we press both triangle and circle at the same time. This will both fire our shock cannon and swap to our turret glove at the same time. Firing the shock cannon during a charge will cancel the charge, but Ratchet will still carry some forward momentum into a slide. As soon as we have both cancelled the charge and swapped weapons, we mash circle immediately after to spam the turrets. Ratchet will perform the animation of throwing a turret during the slide into the plant. And since the plant is sort of slope shaped, we will slide right up it with the stored momentum. With the height that we gain off this, we can move in midair and land on the upper ledge nearby. The very next small gap can just be charged over. Then, to get up here, we could just strafe walk up the circular plant to the right and get straight up there. The rest of this area can be beaten just fine without jumping, until we get to the dropship. When we enter the dropship, Ratchet will run automatically and jump out of the opening to fall to the next area. Even though this jump occurs automatically, we still want to find a way to skip this. It turns out, if you have the suck cannon equipped, you can hold the strafe button and the circle button as you enter the dropship to retain some control in the dropship. This allows you to do certain things like enter first person or swap and fire weapons, but Ratchet will still run and jump out automatically. There was the idea that we could use turrets or the Agents of Doom to try and block Ratchet's walk cycle, but the game wouldn't take no for an answer. However, a method was found recently by the strat hunter, Joalf. The initial setup is the same. Equip the suck cannon, hold strafe and circle, but we also need to hold the left analog stick down right. We keep these held as Ratchet enters the dropship. As soon as Ratchet is standing inside, we mash circle and R1 together several times, and right as Ratchet is about to jump, we mash circle and R1 again. There seems to be some randomness to it, but when it works, it looks like this. Now we can just walk over the edge of the ship manually to continue the level as normal. There is now one final battle on this planet, with a bit of platforming at the end. When the first few wave of enemies are defeated, some more enemies will break down a big metal gate. This is the path we need to head down, but we need to get on a high up ledge. It seemed to be far trickier than the last time, but we can once again perform the same proxy that we used at the very start. We have the shock cannon and the turret glove ready to go. We charge into the wall at a slight angle, press triangle and circle together at the same time, and then mash circle so the proxy sends Ratchet upwards. After we defeat the flying ship here, the bridge will extend to our ship, but if we wanted to clear this gap without defeating the ship, we can just do a precise charge cancel. We mentioned that firing the shock cannon during a charge will cancel the charge, but retain a bit of forward momentum. The timing is tricky, but if we charge over the edge here and cancel the charge with the cannon in midair at the perfect time, Ratchet will lose less height and have just enough momentum to land on this metal platform. Now, to get up here, all we have to do is strafe over the edge to the left. Ratchet will fall and grab on. We can then pull ourselves up here since this is using Ratchet's arms and not considered a jump. We have beaten the tutorial. Now we arrive at planet Florana, and there is a considerable amount of platforming on this level. Things like jumping across gaps over deadly swamps, wall jumping to reach high up ladders, etc. But what if we could skip all of that? It turns out this level's end is right next to the beginning of the level. This drawbridge would normally lower once we reach the other side to create a shortcut to the end, and we want to get around that drawbridge right from the start. All we have to do is charge over the swamp and towards the grass on the right side of the bridge. As soon as we hit the grass, we hold down the X button, and since we were charging, Ratchet won't jump. Instead, he will walk over the grass and into the tree. If we walk at a precise angle towards the tree, Ratchet will start to gain height due to the tree being slightly sloped. With enough height, we can get over the invisible wall blocking our way and hover down to the ground on the other side. This skips a decent portion of this planet and begins the second half of the level, the Path of Death. But did you know that there is a trick in this game that makes the game skip us all the way to the final boss of Planet Florana, which also skips the Path of Death? We didn't use it in this run due to not wanting to skip almost an entire level without at least trying it, but just for fun, let's show it off. The trick is called Quark Warp, or Quarp for short. Firstly, would you believe the setup for this skip is done on the previous level, Planet Veldin. In the final part of Veldin, here's what we need need to do. Save the game and then quit to the main menu. Here we must change the game's language to German. I know it sounds crazy, but it's important for the skip. Then we load back into the last phase of planet Thezeldrin again. Next, Ratchet needs to die. Either have the enemies shoot him to death, or jump off the nearby cliff edge. As long as Ratchet has died at least once and respawns, that is enough to make this setup work. Now, we need to get to our ship before the enemies break down the metal door. We can get over the metal door by performing the tried and true proxy method on this part of the wall. Once we're up here, we can charge over this rock and drop down to the upper ledge beyond the metal door. The flying ship won't spawn here. This means the bridge won't trigger either, so it's a good thing we already have a method of getting over there with a charge cancel. If we perform all of this, and all before the enemies can break down that metal door, then as soon as we fly to the planet Florana, the game will warp us directly to the boss fight against Quark at the very end of the level, hence the name Quark Warp. No one even knows 100% why this trick even works, but the fact that only certain language settings allows this skip to work is crazy. I think Spanish works too, but German definitely works. Since we're not using this skip in our run, we have to play the path of death. The falling ledges are a pain, but we can use charge cancelling to traverse over them. We can even grab the edges of them without falling too. Soon we come to a wall that is very vertical. The charge proxy we've been using up to this point is very situational as it requires sloped walls, so we need another method of gaining height. If we walk right up to the wall, enter first person, turn around 180 degrees, aim right down at our feet, notch the left stick up about 5 times, and then throw a turret down, and then after that, we turn to the left about 45 degrees and throw a second turret down. If they are both positioned right, Ratchet will now be wedged between them, and now all we have to do is aim directly at our feet and throw down the Agents of Doom. When the agents spawn in, they can push Ratchet upwards slightly, and with the turrets already pinning Ratchet against the wall, we will now be hovering above the turrets. This gives us just enough height to grab the ledge and pull ourselves up. The next ledge isn't quite as high up, so we can use the same method here too. The final stretch is the most difficult. Several tricky charge cancels over falling platforms and flaming platforms. We can make this easier by using the shield charger to protect us from the flames, as we don't want Ratchet to get knocked into the lava. The last hurdle is the tallest vertical wall yet. The exact same method won't work here as it's just too high, but we don't necessarily need to get up there. All we need to do is trigger the cutscene before the boss, and the trigger for the cutscene extends all the way down, beneath the arena itself. So just like in our Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2 videos, we are about to use decoy clipping. Only this time, it's called turret clipping. We throw the turrets down at our feet like before, but we must ensure that they are slightly closer to Ratchet this time. This can then clip Ratchet through the wall, and normally this would drop us to our deaths. But if we can get a precise clip partway through the wall, we can then charge through the wall and directly underneath the boss arena. This can trigger the boss's cutscene before we hit the lava. Now we simply defeat the boss, and that's Florana beaten. The Starship Phoenix poses no challenge casually, and even Jumpless there isn't really any challenge here. But did you know there is a method that we can use right here to skip 2 entire planets? That's right, but of course I won't be using it in this run. I'll still show you how to do it though. It's called VR skip. First we start at the bridge, then we turret clip through the wall to the side so we can get by the moving platform. We are out in space now, but Ratchet defies the laws of science. We can clip back inside the ship's center. We want to get up a ledge, and it is here that we will be introducing another trick called turret bounce. Very useful, these turrets. We can use certain in-level assets to get a turret to bounce us in the air. These control panels are a perfect example of an asset that allows this. If we enter first-person view whilst standing parallel to this control panel and throw a turret straight down at our feet, Ratchet will bounce upwards quite a bit. With this height, we can hover down to the ledge we wanted to reach. We can use this same method to get on top of this engine-looking thing, and then turret clip through the wall. I will be showing Zem's footage from here as the next step is insane. We start by equipping the shock cannon. and then we charge out into space, but the angle needs to be perfect. Right at the end of the charge, as Ratchet would normally lose speed, we very quickly press R1, circle, and R1 in that order. This needs to be very fast. The timing to begin these inputs is frame perfect. If you get it right, Ratchet will fire the cannon, and then he will immediately start charging again at full speed. This frame perfect set of inputs needs to be performed like this a total of 3 times in a single charge. This is extremely difficult, but as we already mentioned, Zem is the GOAT, and he nailed it. This allows Ratchet to get in range of a hypershot target and pull himself inside the VR training area that we wouldn't normally have access to. Even if we don't have the hypershot, this still works as the game puts it in our inventory automatically when we get close to the training area. Completing this VR training is exactly what allows us to skip 2 specific planets. We won't show how to get through the VR training just yet though, as we still need to do that later anyway. For now, let's start the next planet, Marscadia. Most of this planet is centered around combat, so it's fairly easy early on. Any gaps we come across can be cleared with charge cancels. There was a small wall that we tried to strafe walk over, and we ended up on the very edge stuck behind a small fence. Fortunately, we were able to walk along the edge and to the dropship at the end. The next part is just a gunfight against a wave of enemies with no platforming whatsoever. Just try not to fall inside the small pools of water though, because you can't just step back out again. I was forced to win this fight from here. Upon winning the last fight, we gain access to the facility. This area is largely just a series of laser puzzles, but there are some high ledges that we need to get onto before we can beat this section. If only there was a way for us to use the turret bounce wherever we wanted. Oh wait, there is. We mentioned that only certain assets will allow the turret bounce to work, but it also works with the Agents of Doom. As soon as we throw down the agents, as long as they land on a flat surface, they will be standing in a certain formation. They will remain in that formation for a few seconds before moving. During those few seconds, we need to stand parallel to the agents and throw down a turret at our feet. This is all much easier if performed in the game's full first-person mode, as this allows us to move into position faster. The agents will also jump on the spot too, and if an agent that we're parallel with jumps at the same time we throw the turret down, we will gain even more height. This is a much more convenient way of reaching the upper platforms without jumping. Something to be aware of, turret ammo cannot be purchased from the PDA. We believe this is due to it being a Megacorp weapon, but then why can you find its ammo in Gadgetron crates? I don't know. The point is, you have limited turret ammo between vendors, so conserve them well. We also need to be careful that we don't accidentally clip ourselves out of bounds. This happened to me when trying to turret bounce up some steps. I ended up falling through the void until I saw my ship in the distance, and it was now in a unloaded part of the level. I thought I could just land on it and then get inside to save myself, but the game wouldn't let me in the ship. I tried to charge over into the dropship, but I choked it, and I ended up hitting an autosave in midair. I was then trapped in a never-ending loop of constant death. So yeah, make sure you don't fall out of bounds in the facility. This would normally be when we would play our first Quark vid comic, and this would also require a lot of jumping, but thankfully we're playing on New Game Plus, so the game gives us an option to completely skip playing all the Quark vid comics, so that's what we'll do. It's a good thing too, because I couldn't even get past the first gap on the floor without jumping. Now we must get to the end of a perilous platforming section in Annihilation Nation. The charge cancel and the turret bounces get us by just about everything here, so with a bit of patience, this wasn't too bad. Moving on to Aquarius, and this is the first of 2 planets that we could have skipped with the VR skip, but we must play every planet, so here we are. The level is mostly an escort mission with skid mug marks. The usual turret bounces can get us on any high platform that we want to reach, as long as it's not too high up. But what would we do if we ever did run out of turret ammo? We can't buy it from the PDA after all, and we don't want to backtrack to a vendor either. We aim to tackle that very question with yet another trick called Box Proxy, or Boxy for short. All we need for this trick is the suck cannon and a nearby crate. If we activate the suck cannon whilst facing a crate, if we're close enough, we will suck it up so it can then be used as ammo later. However, if we start to suck up a crate and then quickly swap weapons before the crate can get to us, the game just stops the crate in midair. From there, the crate cannot be broken and it is treated as a solid object. As soon soon as we equip the suck cannon again, the crate zips right into us as normal. But after suspending a crate in place, if the crate is low down and slanted enough, we can walk on top of it. If we then equip the suck cannon whilst we're perched on top of a crate, as soon as the crate tries to zip towards our cannon, it lifts us up with it. The results from this vary greatly, but it can give Ratchet some decent height. Halfway through the level, we needed to submerge underwater and swim through a tunnel. This isn't an issue, but when it comes to exiting the pool of water, the only way to do so seems to be jumping out. It could be debated that this isn't a jump as it's from water, but if we can find a way to get around this, then we will. So here's how we did it. Before the pool of water, there is a raised platform. If we look to the left, we can actually clip through this pipe with a charge. Be careful not to go too far here though, as we can fall out of bounds and die. After clipping through the pipes, if we then charge forward, it's possible to clip inside the underwater section, but without having to swim. We can freely walk around down here, but we are essentially stuck here. Neither the box proxy or a turret bounce will get us the height we need to escape. Plus, after being down here for 20 seconds, the game checks if Ratchet is swimming, if he's in a swimmable area, and if he's not swimming, he will automatically start swimming. We can use this to our advantage though. If we stand facing a slope and hold R1 to crouch before Ratchet starts swimming, as soon as the 20 seconds are up, Ratchet will start swimming and clip through the slope at the same time. Now we can swim out of bounds. We can use this to swim up through the floor and onto the elevator that leads to the upcoming Clank section. This skips the need to jump out of the water completely. The Clank section can be played more or less casually as there aren't any required jumps, but the Ratchet section, where we must disguise ourselves as a Terranoid, that's not so easy. If our identity is discovered, we are gunned down by sentry guns, but we need to platform over some acid, and we can't use our weapons or charge boots whilst in disguise either. We can pull this off, but we need to be quick. We need to deactivate our disguise, charge over the first gap, and then quickly put the disguise back on before the sentry guns have time to activate. We were able to do the same for each gap, except these were even easier. Since the platforms were so close to each other, we could just run over the edge and grab on. We did have to do one last charge cancel for the final gap though. The last hurdle is right at the end. We fall down into the sewage water and the current pushes us along a tunnel. But to get out of the water at the end, we would need to jump again. No chance of getting out of bounds here, and we can't swim back against the current either. But there is a way. All we have to do is pause the game, save the game, quit the game, and reload the game. Ratchet will start standing next to the plumber. One last charge and one last turret and we're home free. That's Aquarius beaten. This brings us to the second level that we could have skipped with the VR skip, Terranosis. The start is pretty much all combat, but the latter part of the level splits into multiple paths. A decent amount of platforming is required on these few paths. We can use our vehicle as a ramp to get up this ledge, and we can charge cancel to this high platform here. The rest of the platforming can all be done with just turret bounces. To make this planet a lot less tedious, however, we can just use a couple of turret clips to get through the large door and straight to the boss fight at the end. The clip can be awkward, but if you're on the far left side of the door, then it only takes 2 clips in total. There's plenty of room to throw turrets down here. Once the boss is dead, Terranosis is beaten. Now is the time that we actually need to complete the VR training, only we won't need to skip our way into it from out of bounds. We can start the training course from the beginning as normal. As usual, it requires a lot of charge cancels and turret bounces. There is one new trick that we need to perform here, however, the hyper swing hover. We need to use this trick to get by a wall jump section, and it would allow us to hover right by it. We start here, and we need to charge cancel right over the edge, and then immediately latch onto the hypershot target during the momentum that we gained from the charge cancel. During the swing, we need to ensure that the left stick remains in the neutral position. At the very apex of Ratchet's swing, we need to let go of the swing and immediately hold X to hover. If we let go at the very apex, and if the left stick is neutral, the momentum we stored is carried over into our hover speed. We can then quickly flick the left stick to the right to hover around the corner. We must keep it neutral throughout otherwise. This allows allows us to reach a swing shot target further on that we were not meant to reach yet. Once we get to the end of these swing shots, we need to make sure to hover to the ledge on our left and pull ourselves up. The rest of VR training is all turret bounces and charge boots into swing shots. There are hacker sections too, of course, but they don't require jumping. With all that beaten, we can now go to Planet Dax. There are 3 paths on this planet, but one of them leads to the charge boots, and since we're on New Game Plus, we already have them. So we swing to the other side of the water and go for the elevator. We need to use more turrets again to get onto the elevator, and even more turret bounces are needed throughout this whole path until the very end. Conserving turret ammo can be a challenge if we use too many, but it's still very doable. Right away, there are 2 high ledges, but we can use the charge boots from the top of this elevator to get down to those ledges. A couple of charges later, and we come to a wall jump section. It seems too high for a turret bounce, and we tried to use a box proxy as well, but with such little room to work with, it was very difficult. We need to approach this from a different angle. If we head back down the first path again, there is a wall on our right before we reach the swing shot target. We can use a turret bounce to get on top of this wall. We can then charge down from here to a later part of the second path, which bypasses the wall jumps. The platforming sequence ahead of us is very challenging. We can charge into a swing, but the floating platforms get shot down whenever we land near them. We would have to fall and grab each ledge, and charge cancel from one hypershot platform to the next, over and over. Also, Ratchet won't grab the edge of the hypershot targets. And what's more, we have to do all of this very quickly. A better way is to use the hyperswing hover again, from the first swing shot target, and then use it to carry momentum to the left, over these rocks. Once we clear the rocks, we can grab a further swing shot target. The rest of this path is more charge cancels right to the boss fight at the end. Fun fact, did you know that if you fully charge the shot cannon and then weave it left and right as you fire, it deals a lot more damage than normal? Now we're on a level with a difference, Obani Gemini. And because this is a moon and not a planet, we're able to fully traverse it like a giant sphere. There isn't a map of this level, instead the camera zooms out and we can look at the whole moon. The big problem we face here though is that we need to use a lot of these jump pads to get to all the high platforms we need to be on. The jump pads are pretty much completely relied on here, and we can't use them at all. The word jump is in the name after all. The idea is to get to the top of these high ledges and complete a laser puzzle to free our ship, and then fly to a second moon. But what if we can get to the second moon without our ship? Okay, first things first, we need to find a crate. There are a few around here on the moon's surface. If we ever fall down to a lower level, the lava can damage boost us back to the upper level. Once we find a crate, we need to set up a box proxy again. Due to the unique way that these moon levels are coded, performing a box proxy here gives us ridiculous height. So much height in fact, that the moon itself deloads due to being so far away. Once we have this height, we can now hover back down slowly. Our goal is to land on one of the asteroids in the asteroid belt. Landing on one of these is actually intended by the developers, since a couple of the asteroids have flat surfaces. Normally, you would need to use a jump pad to get onto these. The timing is tricky, but when we have finally landed on one of these asteroids from a box proxy, we now need to perform a very strange glitch. We must charge off the asteroid at about this angle. It doesn't look like it, but the hit detection of the asteroid belt stretches very far outward, far further than you would ever assume. As we charge, we can aim towards this invisible hit detection, and it acts kind of like a slope since it slowly pushes Ratchet upwards. We found that it's best to weave left and right against the invisible slope as we charge, and this helps us to gain height faster. It's very easy to mess this up and lose height, but with some practice, we can gain so much height that it's actually possible to see the second moon in the distance, Obani Pollux. You can also see the third moon, Obani Draco, but it has no hit detection at the moment, but Obani Pollux does. We just need to get close enough to it. So now that we can see it, we change our direction towards it. Be sure to never let go of charge and never let go of any direction during this entire process. Dropping our direction, even for a second, will see us falling back down to Obani Gemini. It also helps not to take tight turns whilst charging. It takes a fair while, but as soon as we are in range of Obani Pollux, we are suddenly affected by its gravity. This causes a sudden flip of the game's camera. Now it's a matter of quickly getting our bearings so we can try to land at the end of Obani Pollux. and as luck would have it, we were very close. For extra safety, we quickly switched to hovering for a more precise landing. That was a lot more difficult than it looked, but with that, the first 2 Ebony moons are complete. The next planet is Rilgar, which is purely combat, so we'll just move on. A revisit to Annihilation Nation is up next, and it's largely the same as last time. We just need to get to the end of a gauntlet. There is one section with a lot of floating platforms, but we can get around this by charging straight forward into the molten rock and damage boosting back out again on the other side. This doesn't work on all the rocks, but it does on this one. The rest is all combat, so not much else to say here. I did have to do an awkward strafe walk to get back to our ship though. This brings us to Hollow Star Studios, and we start this level playing as Clank. Right away, we see that we need to jump across the roofs of these prop ships. Since they float up and down, it is possible to run over the edge and hover down to the first ship when it's low enough. But no matter how hard we tried, we could not do this across all 4 ships. There is another way. We can actually more or less skip this whole Clank section with a very strange glitch called level stacking. It's a glitch that allows us to partly load 2 levels at the same time, and they end up overlapping each other. This can have some very odd effects, and the combinations of planets that can be stacked makes for some interesting looking environments. Here is how to perform level stacking. Start on one of the levels that we want in the stack. In our case, this would have to be a level before Hollow Star. In that level, we stand close enough to our ship so that we can enter it anytime. We then make a manual save in a separate save file. Now for the tricky part. We need to unlock a PlayStation trophy whilst being close to our ship. Speedrunners would normally get the trophy for shooting down the blimp in Metropolis, but we've not unlocked that level yet. An example of a trophy that can theoretically be unlocked anywhere is either the one for obtaining 1 million bolts or the one for obtaining 10 million bolts. Bolts can be found near the ship on many levels. This will likely require a lot of bolt farming. Just make sure you're not already trying this glitch on an account that already has all the PlayStation trophies. As soon as we obtain that last bolt that would unlock the trophy, we immediately pause the game and enter the options menu and manually load that new save file we created. Due to the game trying to load a trophy, the manual load that we did will be delayed. During that slight delay, we can very quickly enter our ship and fly to the second level we want in our stack. In our case, that would be Hollow Star Studios. If we were quick enough, we could perform all of that before the trophy has time to display on screen. The trophy will now pop on screen during the loading scene of the ship flying through space. Also, we can now see a list of the game's files to load. If we load our latest save during this loading scene, then this will cause the 2 levels to load at the same time, and they will be overlapping each other. With the right combination of levels, this ends up loading Ratchet in as a playable character instead of Clank. We also fall straight through the floor as soon as we spawn in. This is due to only certain parts of both levels being solid. However, our ship is stored far below Clank's section in this level. We need to fall down for what seems like forever, and slightly to the left of this structure that we see below. It takes a very long time, but our ship is down here. As soon as we land on it, we get inside and select Hollow Star once again. This will actually load Ratchet's section of the level now, thus bypassing Clank's section completely. As interesting as all this is, it's far from being ideal. It requires a PS3 or a PS Vita version of the game, and it requires us to obtain a trophy just to execute it too. What if we get the timing wrong on the trophy? Then we've lost our chance. Trophies can only be obtained once per account after all. Let's look into a slightly more realistic method instead. We can use a glitch that is quite similar to the Clank clips that can be seen in our Ratchet and Clank 2 video. Basically, if you have Clank's back against certain assets, then press L1, square, and the direction towards the asset at the same time, Clank's hitbox will clip through it for about a frame. If we do this against the legs of this light stand, the game tries to push Clank back out again, and it happens to push him upwards. We can use this to get on top of the light if we wanted to, but where we really want to be is on top of the pictures on the wall nearby. So, if we perform this Clank clip to gain height, and then quickly move towards the wall and hover at the apex, we can just grab onto the picture. Now, we need to use Clank clips again to clip through this wall at this spot. The angle is quite important too. So we enter first person view and aim around about here. Now we perform the clank clip as before, only I found that you want to delay the square and direction input slightly after the L1 input. The way this works is that tapping L1 centers the camera behind Clank, but with Clank's back to the wall, the camera just zooms into Clank and back out again. Because the in-game camera is treated like a solid object, it has hit detection. If we time a punch towards the wall at the very moment the camera zooms into Clank, the camera itself can push Clank through the wall. The timing is very precise, but with a lot of practice, we were able to get a clip through the wall. However, this just drops us to our death. We need to try and get beyond the death plane that extends beyond this wall, and we can do this by immediately hovering as soon as we clip through the wall, but this also requires very good timing. There is a more consistent method though. If we aim our punch more towards the top left, then it's possible to only partially clip through the wall and stay on top of the picture. Now it's much easier to time the hover as we run over the edge. We want to hover straight in this direction as that allows us to clear the death plane. Once we're here, we can now walk through the wall in front of us as it's not solid. We will fall out of bounds as soon as we do so. Now we want to land on our ship again, exactly the same as we did with the level stacking. We need to aim for that specific spot as we fall. As we said, it is a very long way down, but after a few minutes we spot our ship in the distance. For extra safety, we can begin to hover to ensure that we land on the ship, and when we're close enough, we can press triangle to get inside. Just like before, we select Hollow Star from the ship's menu, and we are taken directly to Ratchet's section of the level. Both this and level stacking have the same end result, which allows us to completely skip Clank's section. We could travel through Ratchet's section as normal from here, but it would just be more of the same. Turret bounces, charge cancels, etc. So why not just use a turret clip on this wall to the left instead? If we don't quite get the clip, we can charge into the turret and bounce backwards through the wall. Now we can get onto this metal tower and use the teleporter at the top to take us back to our ship. As far as the game is concerned, this is considered enough to complete this level. It's also quite funny to see the enemies before you're supposed to. The next level, Oboni Draco, is a nice breather after Hollow Star. There's a bridge we need to get onto right at the start, but if we just die, we respawn onto the bridge already. From there, it's more charge cancels and then a boss fight at the end. Most of this level can be played casually. Moving on to the Thezeldrin Starport, and there's only one of two paths we actually need to take on this level. That would be the path towards Quark and Scrunch as they're waiting for us to enter Quark's ship with them. Quark flies us to a separate part of the level. The only real obstacle here is a ladder, but we've seen turret bounces enough by now. Let's try something more interesting. Right from the start of the level, we can turret clip out of bounds. From here, we want to hover down until we can see some robot enemies below us. This of course means that the other part of the level that Quark flies us to is located directly beneath us. If we can land above the single robot and across from the two robots, it's possible to hit the cutscene trigger to the end of the level. It was all worth it just to see this cutscene happening in space instead of the ship. Although, as soon as we need to flee the ship before it explodes, since it's not loaded in, we just fall to our death. But the ship spawns in after we respawn, so it's not a soft lock this time. The escape is easy with charge cancels too, so no issues there. Metropolis is up next, and despite it being a sizable level, there's not much to talk about as far as Jumpless is concerned. The beaten path doesn't really require anything too crazy. We can suspend a crate with the suck cannon to make the explosive crate above it float too, so that's fun. Also, did you know the explosive crates bounce like this when they're fired out of the suck cannon? Because I didn't. Other than that, it's more classic turret bouncing and charge cancelling. Even after taking down the boss at the end, we still need to use turret bounces to get on top of the taxi that takes us back to our ship. The crash site isn't much different, it's the same tricks for the most part, just more challenging than before. However, it was here that we realised just how much distance we can get with a box proxy. As long as we get the positioning perfect, it's insane. Usually, to gain more height and distance with box proxies, you would suspend a crate in mid-air, then jump over the crate as you switch to the suck cannon. this boosts the launch height significantly, but since we can't jump, we assumed our height and distance would always be really limited. Well, it turns out we just weren't trying hard enough, because Zem got an insane box proxy on this level. It turns out you can launch Ratchet from the very start of the level all the way to the ending cutscene trigger in a matter of seconds. Getting back to the start of the level is easy too, just save and reload the game. Aridia is another level that is purely combat focused. There are some enemies on higher ledges, but you can just shoot them all from below anyway. So we'll move on quickly. Now we're looking for Corks' hideout, and whereas it's a lot of the tricks we've already seen, it's all more difficult now due to things like ice physics and the numerous enemies. The end of the level is another Clank section, but getting through this was hard enough packless, let alone jumpless. Fortunately, we can use turret clips to bypass Clank's section completely. Although if we do that, the taxi that takes us back to our ship never turns up, no matter how long we wait. Even if we die and respawn, it still never shows up. So we'll have to save and reload again to be taken back to our ship. We must now get to the bridge of the Phoenix whilst it's under attack, and often the flipping enemies will forget which way is up and stand on their sides. Since the moving platform has been destroyed, it is intended that we travel through the ship manually to get to the other side, but it's actually possible to charge over the acid on the right side and hover against this sloped wall to slowly gain height. Eventually you can get high enough to grab the far ledge. Koros is another generic level for the Jumpless challenge. It was a bit awkward getting up some of these ledges due to the tight spaces, but we got up there eventually. Did you know you could just walk through this broken door from the back and clip right through? I sure didn't. Tell you what, let's look at a more interesting method of getting through this level. Do you remember the charge proxy we used way back on planet Thezeldrin? Well, until now, the turret bounce had rendered the charge proxy obsolete, but we're bringing it back for this level. Right near the start, we can stand at the end of a broken bridge. This is where we want to charge from. Just like before, we have the shock cannon and the turrets lined up. We aim for this part of the wall and charge towards it. Be careful though, as sometimes a ship will fly right by here and Ratchet can sometimes bonk right into it and fall to his death. However, if we have 25 skill points unlocked, we can turn on an in-game cheat that turns ships into ducks. And would you believe, this actually reduces the hitbox size as well. This ensures that we don't bonk into a ship/duck mid-charge. As soon as we charge to the wall, we press triangle and circle together, and then mash circle to be proxied upward to a part of the roof. We can now charge down to a much further part of the level to cut out a lot of turret bounces. Okay, one more weird glitch. Sometimes the enemies get stuck in the ground and they can't move and they just accept their fate. Now, for the final level of the game. The command center. The first major obstacle we run into here are the burning pipes partway up a metal wall. Touching it makes us fall down to the bottom again. The way we can get by these is to wrench swing into the pipes. Let them burn you, and as Ratchet damage boosts above the pipes, quickly wrench swing again. Ratchet will stick back to the wall as he swings, and now we've gotten over the pipes. The next challenge is during the Terror Guys section. We need to awkwardly turret bounce our way up these small steps, and the turrets just don't cooperate in small spaces. The problem is, when we finally get up these steps, the alarm triggers because we're not in disguise. Once the sentry guns start firing, it's too late to put the disguise on. After a few failed attempts, we resorted to turret clipping through the force field, and with our last turret ammo too. But now, we're stuck before a large gap. It's much too far to charge cancel over. We could do something incredibly skillful, like turret bouncing above the section and then charging over the small beams of the roof, but Zem's been doing this a lot longer than I have. Instead, we managed to charge cancel to the left side and then get a hyperstrike in midair to maintain forward momentum. With that, we just landed on this pipe on the other side. Turrets will then once again help us get up to the main ledge. Now we're home free to enter the final boss fight against Nefarious. By now, we have all the firepower we need to take down Nefarious. But there is one very large problem. His AoE attacks. It's by far his most dangerous attack in a jumpless run. Everything else can be dodged fairly easily without jumping once you get his pattern down, but once he starts rapidly throwing those bombs, we can't jump over the energy waves and our health drains very quickly. Even our shield charger gets destroyed by these bombs after only a few hits. We fight Nefarious across two phases. Once he's taken enough damage in the first phase, he flies off to the next arena for the second half of the fight. He has plenty of friends to get in our way too. We were able to get past phase 1 many times, but in phase 2, those AoE attacks are a lot more frequent, and we died every single time. It was then that Zem taught us about a strat for dealing extra damage that speedrunners use on bosses, and it's called Rhino Bombing. We need both the Nitro Eruptor and the Rhino for this trick. Also, it's important that our Rhino is either version 2, 3 or 4. Version 1 or 5 will not work anywhere near as well. Basically, if you hit the boss with a nitro bomb and fire the Rhino at the boss right as the nitro bomb is exploding, then the Rhino will deal far more damage than it normally would. It seems to be caused by stacking different kinds of damage at the exact same time, and if it's timed just right, we can take off just over a third of Nefarious' health every time we do it. This strat is so powerful that if we nail this trick 3 times in a row in quick succession, it's actually possible to kill Nefarious before he ever has a chance to fly to the second arena. This is called the Nefarious 1 cycle. Here's how we did it. We make sure that the last 3 weapons we equipped are the turrets, the Nitro Eruptor, and the Rhino in that order. Also, we will want the shield charger in our quick select. Right as the fight starts, we use our shield charger from the quick select, and then begin throwing 4 turrets in front of Nefarious whilst dodging his clone attacks. Then we switch to the Nitro Eruptor, and then we stand on this line on the floor. This will ensure the perfect distance, so we don't need to focus too much on timing, but don't shoot a bomb at him straight away. We need to wait until he is using his 4th and final clone attack. Only then do we fire a bomb, otherwise he will take too much damage too early and he'll fly off sooner. Right after firing the first bomb, we switch to the Rhino and then fire it at Nefarious immediately. The distance between us should ensure that the timing is perfect and it hits at the same time as the bomb connects. Plus, the shield charger will protect us from any damage too. We have to act fast though, as we need to nail this perfectly 2 more times. So, we double tap triangle to get back to the bomb, and the input sequence repeats itself once again. Nailing the timing for this 3 times in a row was very difficult, and it took us many attempts. We would very often get so close to killing him, but he would fly off in time to save himself. We could have just chased him down to the second arena and then finished him off there quickly, since he was now very weak, but I really wanted to get this 1 cycle. Here's the strat we used in the end. Once we were in position and ready to fire our first bomb, we focused only on the weapons in the top left corner. This helped with the button sequence a lot, and it was by using this that we were finally able to pull off the 1 cycle. That might have been the hypest moment of my entire streaming life. Oh!
You got it!
Oh, this game, I'm done. This nugget is done.
Yes, dude!
All that was left now was to defeat the Bio-Obliterator. We can do this in a ship, we can use the sniper rifle to kill it from the ground, or we can charge around to the other side of the arena and use the Rhino from the floor, which apparently Zem didn't realise you could do. What if I can reach him from here? That'll be funny.
So the way this... Wait, did you get it?
I'm doing it from the floor.
You're doing it from the floor? Oh my god, wait. I gotta see this. This is funny. You can just do this from the floor?
We have done it. Can you beat Ratchet and Clank 3 without jumping? Yes, you can! A big thank you to Zem. Without him, I wouldn't even have thought to do a Jumpless challenge, not to mention all the tricks and glitches he taught me throughout the whole run. If you want to see Zem performing this same challenge, then check out the Jumpless video on his channel. I will link it in the description. Another thank you to all of those on the Ratchet and Clank speedrun Discord server that helped me out with information and footage. Check them out as well. And if you liked this video, then please do subscribe. We live stream all of these challenge runs, so please follow our Twitch too. All the links are in the description. Speaking of Twitch, we have a lot of Twitch subs to thank, so let's speedrun their names. They are A Lazy Dragon, Alex Gaming, Allison Inc., Alvifo, Big Wolf Chris, Boardplate, Contran, Crawling Relsa, Dino, Dr. Mantis Toboggan Games, D-Stut, Duncan F93, Dweegi, Evolve Pixel, Finn Living with a Ghost, Gato Gato, Golfing Gamer, Hacky Joey, Henneman, Ewu James, Indvdu, Jax Pratty, John Fitz49, Joshi, Judy Poody, Cami, Krifos, Lazardian, L. Hoffman, Lockie, Mackenzie, Rosie, Mad King Cryptid, Miss Barbs, Nath D, Nurse Bobber, Platonic Penguin, Ruby Doo, Scotto Bozo, Spectrum Z90, Static Joke, Sunbro, Supersonic Blur, Tame Hunter, 10 divided by 6, That Chloe is Odd, The Bloody Screen, Tim Zero, Tadeo Dingo, Torzi H, True DK0, and Zem92. And also a massive thank you to the patrons. They are a Lazy Dragon and Anthony Kermack. You beautiful people, you. If you want to see challenge runs on Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2, then here is the perfect playlist for you. Or maybe you want to see challenge runs on the original Spyro trilogy. We have you covered there too. Also, subscribe to Zem2 please. He has killer Ratchet and Clank content and he's got multiple speedrun world records on these very games. You won't regret it.